ICIFA CPD webinar series. That is the impact of COVID-19 on Kenya's financial markets. So FA Rina,
FA Financial Analyst Geoffrey Odundo, FA Jonathan Stichbury, FA Neha or Neha Shah, FA Poonam Vora.
To set kind of a roadmap as to how we actually got here to COVID-19, we thought it'd be useful to just share a screen on the timeline of events, and I'll run through this fairly quickly. I'm sure ICIFA will be sharing the slides with you later. Some of the key events that affected us in Kenya is, the first one was when COVID was announced, the first case was announced outside of China, which was in Thailand on the 13th of January. The second one was when it was first announced in Africa on the 14th of February in Egypt. And then when WHO declared COVID a pandemic in 11th of March. And then very subsequently, we reported our first case on the 12th of March. Since 12th of March till today, our government, our leaders, our healthcare providers have been hands-on in fighting the crisis. And what ensues into the financial markets is what we'll now go through later.
On the Kenyan Treasury bills and bonds, Kenya's fiscal deficit has expanded to 7.7% of GDP in 2018 and 19 from 7.4 the previous year, as a result of the public debt, which increased from 62.4% in December. The World Bank expects that this is now going to be 8% for 2020. If you look at the charts on the Kenyan T-bills, the yield has been fairly flat for the 91-day, the 182 and the 364-day. We've had a slight dip from the onset of COVID in Kenya on the 364-day T-bill, but the rest of them have been fairly flat. And if you look at the trading, from the 12th of March, we've seen a sharp decline in the number of bids that have been received. And we had actually hit a maximum of 64 million in just before that, on the 12th of March. On the Eurobond side, we've seen the yields actually converge after COVID, and there seem to be a lower yields between April and May. So we see a decline happening.
I think the first thing to say is that we're not alone here. This is a global situation which has occurred, and it's impacting every country pretty much around the world, albeit in different ways. And I guess the important thing for policymakers all around the world is to make sure that what is undoubtedly a recession-causing pandemic in many countries doesn't turn into a depression. And what do I mean by that? I mean, we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where aggregate demand is permanently damaged. So, and to avoid that, countries have been trying to shore up demand and ensure that businesses don't go bankrupt, ensure that workers still have money in their pockets, and people have jobs. And so I think one of the most common things that's been happening in the developed world is something called furloughing, whereby government steps in and pays a stipend, can be a substantial portion of someone's salary, up to a maximum limit, to try and keep people economically engaged in society, so that they don't renege on their debts, they continue to service their obligations, and they can continue their lives even though perhaps they're not able to actively contribute on a day-to-day basis to society.
Just before the first case in Kenya came through on the 12th of March, We all thought that this was going to be an isolated virus, resident in China, until we saw it get its way out of China. And we really never really thought it would reach here with the kind of velocity it got to here. And so when it happened on that very day, we as a market experienced a very heavy down drop in the market trades. There was a very heavy selling, and for that we had to institute a halt to allow the markets to absorb the information. But to our pleasant surprise, I think there was a very good halt, and the market, we never introduced another one, and even on subsequent days. I think that went on well. And for us, I think we have been experiencing a very depressed market environment for a while, and I think that was something that we thought 2020 was going to be a really turnaround year for us. In our estimations and projections, we had factored that. But of course, nobody saw this coming through.
And it's actually really great to see how the exchange and the capital markets have responded to accept, to adopt a technology and to allow companies to post on their websites, to have AGMs online, as was ruled by the courts. It's quite welcome.
The private sector is doing a lot on the healthcare, on conversations around how the private sector can actually make a difference. So they're connecting with KEPSA, they're connecting with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, they're connecting with private organizations, as well as trying to feed all of that back to the Ministry of Industry and Ministry of Health. So we're seeing a lot of companies pivoting from, for example, making car parts to making ventilators. We're seeing a lot of them look at PPE. So we have a group of 3D printers that have now started printing ventilator parts. They're printing masks. They're printing face shields. Where we're finding that there is a bit of a lag is to get to the right people. So mapping out what the health sector needs, mapping out what the private sector needs, and actually getting that fast-tracked.
Jeff, there was a very interesting article that I read, and it was by Dambi Samoyo. Those of you who may not know Dambi Samoyo, she wrote a book, I think it was 2009, called Dead Aid. And in that book, she was talking about how aid does not help, and aid will not help Africa. And now she's turned around, and in an article that is in the current Economist, saying how Africa needs aid, and a large chunk of it. And if we don't get a substantial aid injection, we will be destroyed by the coronavirus. And in her view, that's what we need right now. And one of the reasons that she says this is that the Western countries have an opportunity to win back Africa's hearts from the Chinese.
And I think one of the great things about we've got here is that, our human capital is pretty much second to none, certainly in the region and probably in Africa. Very technologically savvy, very open to new ideas and innovations. We've got a dominant mobile operator, but that means that stuff can be rolled out very quickly, whether it's testing, location, who you've been in contact with, whatever it may be. And I'm quite sure that there are people on the Ngong Road right now working on exactly those sort of apps, or maybe from their homes, to try and help us get through this. But I can assure you that getting through this will not be necessarily down to people like me with grey hair or no hair. It'll be, people with new ideas, new initiatives, using technology, and how better we can work, how more efficiently we can work. Is going to be a new world after this. We all know it. We just don't know exactly what it looks like. But Kenya is really well positioned, if you think about it, to benefit from that.
After the COVID-19 crisis will pass, and after the storm, the sun will shine again, but it will shine on a rather changed world.